This week, we're going to discuss yet another rain-delayed Belgian Grand Prix and a look ahead to Hungary. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Back at the Grid. I'm Chris, joined as always by Tom.
Hello.
We are both slightly under the weather, but we're going to power through and try to still make a podcast.
Luckily, it wasn't an eventful race that needs a lot discussing.
Boy, wasn't it? I mean, wow. I was away for the weekend, so I only caught up on Monday evening when I got back, and didn't take much catching up. Sprint and the Grand Prix.
I'm very disappointed in you for no remote location recording, Chris.
I know, right?
I managed to get on from a Welsh valley, damn it.
I was even in Belgium, just the wrong part of Belgium.
Yeah.
But yeah, as mentioned at the start, it was what is a fairly regular occurrence at Spa, which is a quite heavily rain-delayed start to the race. Was it pushing 90 minutes, I think, in the end it was delayed by?
I think they gave it a 20-minute start. I think it started at 20 past. Then they gave it around a 20-minute start warning after about an hour of waiting. So yeah, somewhere around an hour and 20 minutes, give or take a little bit either way.
And the drivers seemed like fairly split on it. Some of them saying it was too dangerous, they couldn't see a thing, it's not worth the risk. Others saying this is no worse than Silverstone was and we raced there. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it was all necessary?
I'm pretty disappointed, to be brutally honest with you. Like, if it's not wet enough to put on the wets, they should be racing. Visibility can be a problem, yes, but do 4 or 5 laps behind the safety car like they ultimately did when we started. And if it's not suitable for a standing start, just start rolling start exactly like we did behind the safety car. Like, that could have definitely been done in the conditions we had at the start of the race. Because, yes, more rain came, and you might have potentially stopped the race, but it should have at least got going, in my opinion. I'd rather seen a race get going and had to be stopped than be waiting 80 minutes plus for a race to even start. And it took all the jeopardy out of it. Like, part of Spa is that the weather is a big part of the jeopardy. And by the time they eventually set a start time, by the time they'd done 4 laps or whatever it was behind the safety car, there was literally a dry line, and it wasn't far from changing over to the slicks. So I feel like they ruined anything that could have made that race interesting, and it pretty much just got left to Hamilton trying to come through the field in the early conditions to make it interesting. There wasn't a huge amount of anything. I mean, obviously Oscar getting right behind Lando and making a race of it early, but then he was just gone. So that was like over in 4 corners. Like, the only other thing we had after that was watching Hamilton slice through the back markers in the midfield.
You say watching him. We still barely saw him.
Well, but, they just cut to him as a move was happening and then moved away. So, yeah.
And it's, there was a bunch of drivers that had gambled on a pit lane start and changed to a full wet setup.
Yeah.
And it just removed that kind of element of it as well.
I mean, there were some people who compromised the qualifying slightly to have a wet setup because they knew it was coming. And yeah, I think that's one of the reasons we ended up with such a drab race overall, is because so many of them had gone down that route and just had nothing to be able to give when it came to overtaking opportunities, because they'd all gone for this wet weather setup, or at least more towards the wet weather setup. So, yeah, I think it's, for me, it's a race that could have started. That's the summary of it. It's a race that could have started on time, even if we'd had to do a few laps behind the safety car to get a little bit of, just to let people get an idea of what the circuit was like, what the conditions were like, and start to clear a little bit of that water. But just doing the single lap and then immediately going, nope, we're not
Yeah.
starting, was just not good enough. Like, even if they'd done 2 or 3 laps and then decided to call it off, at least they would have been shifting some of that water and potentially improving the conditions. And I think that's the biggest failing for me, is just going,
Yeah.
formation lap, now we're not even starting after that. Sorry.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, and I understand up to a point. Like, from a race director's point of view, they're almost damned if they do, damned if they don't, because they don't start the race and they get criticised for not getting going. If they had started the race and there ended up being a massive accident, they would have been criticised for that as well. And I think at Spa in particular, but F1 in general, after things that have happened over the past 5 or 10 years, they are extremely rain cautious. But all of that being said, I completely agree with what you said. Like, don't just give up after one lap. Leave them out there. Nothing clears water off a Formula One track better than Formula One cars going round, even if they're just behind a safety car. Like, give it a few laps, make a judgment. Frustrating, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
When we did finally get going, as you say, the race for the win, in many ways, was kind of over immediately because Piastri took the lead down the Camel Straight. Like, between the sprint and the Grand Prix, starting second seems to be the prime place to be, doesn't it, really?
Well, yeah, getting that run, especially if you've got the cojones to be right up somebody's rear in Eau Rouge. That's the key to it, isn't it? Like, is having that commitment, because both Max in the sprint and then Piastri in the Grand Prix both had that commitment to be as close as virtually possible to somebody going up through Eau Rouge and Radion. And I think if you've got that level of commitment, you're always going to win down that track. I mean, he was close enough to pass him before the support pit exit that's at the top of Radion. You know, that little kink that you have before you hit that Camel Straight, and he was already close enough to be past him at that point. Like, that's when he was moving out around Norris. So yeah, it just shows that the determination, I think, of certain drivers like that, like Oscar and like Max, that to just commit to that. And there's an element of trust in there as well, I think, is, you know, trusting the guy in front. Because it won't have been easy to... I've not seen an onboard directly from Oscar. I don't know if he had any kind of visor cams or any of those kind of cams running, but he probably won't have been able to see a great deal being that close to the McLaren.
I mean, as Tom's pointed out in the chat, like, Norris did have that little slide on the exit of La Source, which helped, and
compromised him,
obviously in the sprint, Max was running a much lower downforce package, so that definitely helps things as the second place starter.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we did sort of still have a race for the win, at least in terms of the timing. We never actually saw them get close together, but it looked like we were going to.
We had a dream of a battle for the win. We had a dream the mediums were going to go off and close the gap down. And don't get me wrong, I'd have loved to have seen it happen. But I think when you got to about 10 laps to go, there was a radio conversation between Oscar and his engineer, essentially just saying, "Yep, I'm still good to take these to the end. They're not great, but they'll be fine." And it was like, at that point, you just knew that it was over. I mean, Norris did start closing the gap, but then he was having to push so hard on those hard tyres that it was just leading to mistakes. Like, there were a number of times where he ran wide or got deep into a corner, or he was just like too eager on the throttle coming out of corners like La Source. And yeah, what was the closest he got in the end? So like 2.5, 3 seconds, I think, with a couple of laps to go.
Something like that, I think, yeah.
And then on that opportunity where he might have started to close it in, that was one of the ones he got wheel spin coming out of La Source and essentially lost like half a second to a second back again. So yeah, it was a decent call from McLaren on the whole to offer that up to him, and for Norris to take the gamble. Like, he was literally, I think, the only person that even ran the hard tyre, was he not?
He was of the one stoppers. There are a couple of people who did a second stop and switched to hards, but the one stoppers, he was the only one to do it.
Yeah. So it's, and in that situation, that's what you've got to do, isn't it? You've got to say, if we're going to have a chance, we need to do something different. Do you want to commit to that? And, fair play to that side of the garage and Norris himself. They took the gamble on it and didn't work out this time, but had those mediums fallen off for Piastri like they did for some of the others, you could be sitting here, talking about it being a stroke of genius. So I think they've just got to take those chances and roll with them. And at the end of the day, I think coming second behind the championship rival, who's come home first, is short of beating them. That's the best thing you can wish for, isn't it? It's to be as close as possible. So
I think the lap they chose to pit Norris as well. I mean, it's very easy to say in hindsight, but they opted to have Norris stay out an extra lap rather than double stack behind Piastri.
Yeah.
When Piastri went into the pits, the gap was 1.9. When Norris left the pits, it was 9.1. So in just that outlap on the slick tyres versus Norris still being on the old inters caused a huge gap. And I think, again, hindsight's easy, but if he had have just gone in behind Piastri, yes, he'd have lost time double stacking, but he'd have lost less than the 8 or so seconds he lost doing an extra lap.
There's a little bit of that was the fumbled left front, because that will have definitely cost him a good couple of seconds, I think. I don't know what the exact pit timer was, but it felt like he definitely lost a good couple of seconds with the left front. But yeah, I guess there's an element of, at that point, if he had double stacked, he'd probably still have worked out about the same, like you say. So, but you don't know these things in the moment, do you?
No.
So.
Trying to find his pit stop times. 24. No, I can't see it. Never mind. But yeah, I mean, good weekend for Piastri. After he was obviously very annoyed after Silverstone, so to come back with not a sprint win, but he finished ahead of Norris in the sprint, and then to win the race, that's bumped his lead back up to 16 points in the championship now. So still not a huge gap, but go in the right direction from his point of view. Joining them on the podium was Leclerc. His 5th podium of the season. He is only 3rd behind Piastri and Norris in terms of podiums this season, which is... I feel like I would have guessed that was Verstappen, but Leclerc's just been sort of quietly picking up these 3rd places all year, I guess.
Yeah.
Really strong drive from Leclerc, I thought, actually. It was quite clear that Max had a faster car. I saw somebody averaged out all of their lap times across the entire race. And the difference between Leclerc and Verstappen's average lap was 0.001 of a second across the entire race distance, which basically just says Max could match whatever lap time he was doing at any point in the race, but just didn't have the pace to get past him.
Yeah.
I mean, you could point to that being a problem with the cars, the circuits, whatever, if someone clearly that much faster can't get past. But Leclerc did have to put in some defensive moves here and there. Yeah, I was impressed. I thought that was a good drive from him.
Yeah, interesting little statistic I saw about that over the weekend was with Jackie Hicks being on the podium to present trophies, the only 4 people with 8 Grand Prix wins were all on the podium at the same time.
I did see that. Yeah, that's really
that was Piastri's 8th win. Norris has 8, Leclerc has 8, and Jackie Hicks got 8. So
yeah, that's
and then they're the only 4 on that number. I mean, definitely that will change within the next few days, and one of them will become a 9.
Yeah,
9
I strongly suspect so.
But I mean, it might not, but it probably will. If not this weekend, it will at some point this season.
Yeah, Hungary can throw up some interesting results, but I can't struggle to see that this year.
Yeah.
Hamilton on the other side, it was best and worst of Hamilton, wasn't it? Qualifying sessions, there was that spin he had in sprint qualifying, which he sort of blamed on a new component he hadn't got used to. Then he had that lap deleted in Grand Prix qualifying, which drops him right to the back. But then stick him at Spa in wet conditions from the back, and he was just like watching old Hamilton just like scything through the field. Super impressive. Yeah, I mean, he does slowly seem to be coming to terms with how that car works. There's also been a change on the engineering side of his team, apparently at Ferrari. It's not his race engineer, but another higher person. They've swapped engineering. It's someone he used to work with at Mercedes, I think. I forget exactly who it is.
His race engineer had changed as well, though, had it not? Because wasn't he saying that was part of his issues through the weekend, was a change in engineer was not helping matters? Or am I misunderstanding something I've read?
No, it's still the same race engineer on the radio. It's just another member of his like senior engineering team on his side of the garage has been changed, I think.
Okay.
They also called the swap to dries perfectly. I don't know if you've seen the team radio from that, but the beginning of the lap, Ferrari basically said to him, like, do you think he's ready for slick shed? And Hamilton was like, no, absolutely not. Then throughout the lap, he's like, it's getting a bit better here. Actually, this is looking quite dry. This is all right. And by about 3 corners from the end, he's like, yeah, it's time. Let's do it. Let's take the risk. And yeah, made the call himself and paid off extremely well. I think he
really, really well.
I think he undercut like 5 cars just by pitting a lap earlier. Like, yeah, really good. Ferrari now, with Mercedes' rough weekend, Ferrari have moved to 28 points ahead of them now, in second in the constructors. So a good little run they've been on after Mercedes had their own good run. Speaking of Mercedes, just what an awful weekend they had.
Frustrating. It's weird, isn't it? I mean, that car we talk about, cooler conditions suit it, but then cool as in wet is just too far the other way.
Yeah.
It's like it's got to be between 18 and 22 degrees and it's got to be bone dry for that car to work. That's about right. So given by weather conditions we've seen in the past through Hungary, I'm going to say they're probably not going to do well this weekend either. Just going out on a limb.
I suspect you're right. Yeah, I mean, I felt sorry for Antonelli as well. Like, he was looked pretty upset after qualifying with how that had gone from him. And like, I've seen some people criticising Antonelli recently, but given the seat he's in his debut season, I still think he's doing a very good job this year. Like, he's going to have rough weekends. That just comes with being a rookie. I think it's way too early to be being overly critical of him.
Yeah, I think the main problem for him is when you look at his recent run of results, when you look at the fact that in the last, I want to say it's 6 races, he's only had 1 points finish. Might even be more than that now, 7 or 8 races maybe. Was Miami, Spain was his podium, and before that it was somewhere like Miami or China that he last had points.
No, he had the podium in Canada, but that broke up.
Canada, sorry, not Spain.
But he's had 3 no points finishes since Canada, and 3 races before Canada he also didn't score points.
Yeah, so it's 6 non-scoring in the last 7. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. I knew it was somewhere around that. But yeah, I think when he had such a good start to the season and then to end up there, that's maybe where some of the criticism is coming from. Because as well, George, despite the car not being the greatest, is managing to get results from it. But I guess that's the difference of a rookie compared to someone who's been in the sport, 6 seasons now, is it?
Must be,
George,
yeah. But even then, like, Canada aside, you look at George's results before and after Miami, and it's kind of 2 stories there. Like, that car just hasn't developed in the direction they needed to. So I think it's gone away from both of them. The difference is, for George, it's meant he's dropped towards the bottom end of the points, whereas for Antonelli, it means he's dropped. Well, I mean, he's had 4 retirements, and when he's finished, he's been out of the points. So, but yeah, I think that's just experience, honestly.
Yeah, he's gone from sort of being a persistent 3rd behind the McLarens to being like 5th on average. George, probably.
About that, yeah.
I think it was Emily that pointed it out while we were watching. She went, George loves fifth, doesn't he? Can't even, and I was like, I don't think he loves it. I think that's just where he's ended up at the minute. But it was a fair assessment, to be honest, because there is like a good 2 or 3 races recently where he's been in that fifth position.
He's always Mr. Something. He used to be Mr. Saturday. Now he's Mr. Fifth, apparently.
Yeah.
We already mentioned Max. Not a whole lot to say, really, other than he did well to win the sprint. Couldn't get past Leclerc. Tsunoda, though, an interesting weekend. So he didn't have the best of times through the sprint, but the team worked very hard to get the newer spec floor on his car ahead of qualifying. So I think from what I've read, it was Mekies, who's obviously his first weekend in charge, pushing for them to make that change. And he seemed to get to grips with that new floor very quickly and looked a lot happier with it. Managed 7th on the grid in the end, which is probably his best qualifying, I think, since he swapped to Red Bull.
I think
I would guess.
Yeah.
And he was unlucky not to finish in the points, like he was running up there. But again, I've seen the onboard of that, and there was a bit of discussion around the tyres going on, and they basically told him to box just as he had rounded the final corner. It was too late, so he ended up having to do an extra lap on the inters, and that basically dropped him out of contention. Yeah, he came in the same lap as Norris, so he probably lost a similar chunk of time, and that dropped him out of contention, unfortunately. But he certainly looked happier in that car this weekend, especially after they made the floor change. So hopefully things are sort of starting to go his way in that team now.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, there's still other upgrades for him to have. They were talking about him getting the new front wing package and nose package that Max has run and things like that. So maybe that will sort of neutralise the car a little bit and bring it back towards both of them, because Max definitely needs it to come back towards the middle line, I think, and to be able to get the best out of it. And it would appear from Yuki getting part of those updates on his car that it's going to slowly come back towards him as well. So yeah, not the greatest race finish, like you say, but there were moments in that, if it weren't for the bad pit stop timing, that looked like he might have been on for one of his better results in the Red Bull.
Good signs for him.
He's had a couple of tenths and stuff, hasn't he? But nothing more significant than that. And he could have potentially bettered that if it wasn't for the bad pit stop timing.
Yeah. We won't go through everyone, but I'll just grab a few other things of interest. Williams, good weekend on Albon's side. Well, I mean, decent weekend around for Williams, I suppose. Albon managed to qualify 5th, finished up 6th. They held off Hamilton in the later stage of the race. Sainz had a really good sprint to finish 6th, but then he kind of changed setup direction for qualifying and went the wrong way, basically, and couldn't really recover, which was a shame. But after a rough patch for Williams, it was good to see them back in the points again, because I think they had a 9th place, I think, in at Silverstone. They've not had many points other than that recently.
Yeah, decent. A 6th is a decent position for them, isn't it? It's a bit more than best of the rest in a way, because it's ahead of a Ferrari. So there's an element of that mixed in there, I guess. I mean, that Ferrari was coming from the back because it's Lewis Hamilton, but it's still.
But he held him off, which was impressive in itself. They had a really good fight a couple of times in the race, actually, Albon and Hamilton. And again, we saw next to none of it on TV, but it's out there if you want to track it down.
Definitely.
Liam Lawson also had a really good race. He managed to get it into Q3. He started 8th, finished 9th. I think it was only Hamilton that passed him. Sort of things are swinging back Lawson's way at RB again now. He's had 2 points finishes in 3 races. Whereas Hadjar, this is 4 in a row now, he's not scored points. So Lawson's sort of crept back to within 6 points of him, of Hadjar in the standings. Again, they're another team that's just like feast and famine, though, aren't they? They've had some really good weekends, and then they're just nowhere for a while. I think Hadjar had some kind of technical issue that was hurting his straight line speed.
He didn't have a great pit strategy overall, to be fair, though, from what I remember.
No, he ended up doing a two-stopper, and basically everyone who did a two-stopper was well at the points, basically. So, yeah. Didn't work out for him. Pierre Gasly, I feel like we say this a lot of the time at the moment, but Pierre Gasly, another really good performance in an absolutely terrible-looking Alpine car. He put it 8th on the grid for sprint quali, but he had a water leak and wasn't able to start, unfortunately. Only qualified 13th, but he went for a super aggressive, low downforce setup, and once it started to dry out, that sort of paid dividends for him, and he climbed back into points as well. I feel sorry for Gasly because he seems to be driving as well as he ever has this season, but he's just in a terrible car run by a team that just seems to be all over the place at the moment. I think he needs to find a new home ultimately, but I can't see where that's going to be for him on this grid.
Not currently. Cadillac? Can add his name to the Cadillac list.
Yeah, maybe. I can see him ending up off to WEC or IMSA within the next few years, to be completely honest with you. And I think he'd do well there, but it'd be a shame to see him.
He could go join the long list of Red Bull rejects that have become Formula E champions.
Or that, yeah.
He'd probably achieve something decent there, I reckon.
I think I'm right in saying Gasly's had a Formula E start or two.
Has he?
Didn't he? I'm sure Pierre Gasly popped up in. Or he's done some testing, maybe.
I think he might have done testing, but I didn't know he'd race.
No, he did. In 2016, he did 2 Formula E starts for Renault.
Did not remember that.
Scored... he did score some points, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like... it was when he was reserve and test for Red Bull. He did a bit of Formula E.
Yeah,
while he was also doing super Formula stuff
in New York. There you go.
No, there we go. Little tidbit for the week there.
Yeah.
Last person I want to mention is Bortoletto. Another points finish for him. He made it through to Q3, I think, for the second time in his career, which he converted into 9th place, which was a very, very good drive, I thought, from Bortoletto. He just he had a slow start and he just seems to be going from strength to strength. He's kind of seems to be there or thereabouts on Hulkenberg's pace, at least for the last few rounds.
Yeah, I think the updates that obviously have helped Hulkenberg have helped Gabby get a little bit more confident in the car, and maybe also seeing what Hulk's been able to do with it has given him a bit of an incentive, a bit of a target, and he's, rather than seeing it detrimentally and looking at it as oh no, I'm not that fast, and it becoming a spiral, it's more of a motivation, and it's starting to get him a couple of decent results because he's had what was it, an 8th in Austria and now a 9th here, so maybe an okay points finish in Hungary to go into the next sort of bit of the summer break, and just sort of sees him out on a high, doesn't it, before coming back for the next run.
Yeah, he's good, man. Bortoletto, I think he's gonna. I keep saying this, but he really is one to watch. He's a very talented guy.
Yeah, and all to play for when it becomes Audi next year as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Should we do some awards?
Yeah, let's.
Driver of the day.
I mean, I know it's through back markers and stuff, but picking through people in the wet, seeing a little bit of a Hamilton of old and some of the moves he pulled off, I think there's a good candidate for Hamilton, getting from what was he when he officially started? Was he about 18th, I think, with the order that they started from the pit lane officially?
Yeah,
he was 18th. All the way up to 7th. So, I mean, that's a drive like that's always a good candidate. Like you said yourself before, Ferrari put the question out to him and he literally assessed it corner by corner and made a call to confirm, and it made the race for them, I think. So, yeah, I think probably up there. On the other side of the garage, Leclerc's probably an all right candidate as well. But that's mainly from managing to hold Max off in, like you were saying before, the pace was in the Red Bull. Max had the pace to potentially be beyond Leclerc, but Leclerc does a very good job defensively, but I think out of the two Ferraris, I'd lean more towards Hamilton just because of the number of overtakes and the quality of them.
Yeah, the only thing that makes me hesitate with Hamilton is that we've done this before. We've always said we're hesitant to give driver of the day to someone who's had a good drive because they're undoing their own mistake from the
Very
previous
true.
day.
That mistake in quali almost cost other people laps as well, to be brutally honest with you. It was a very frustrating moment to see him lock in the rear and essentially just being parked in the runoff for the bus stop chicane.
Because yes, he came back and finished 7th, but he probably should have been qualifying that car in the top 5. So
yeah, that's fair.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was still a very good drive.
I think the problem is nothing else stood out as much in such a dull race. That's the problem. If you'd got one or two, I mean, saying Piastri is easy, but Piastri made one move at the start of the race and then just managed his tyres. That's it.
Everyone else is kind of qualified well and then held position.
Yeah.
Almost. Well, on this occasion, I'll go with you and give it to Hamilton, I think. Just as you say, given that there's nothing else really stands out.
Yeah.
What about move of the day?
I've kind of got two. One is probably Oscar on Lando at the start, just because it's the move that essentially seals the race for him. It gets him the clean air, gets him the opportunity to stretch his legs a little bit, and then lets him manage those medium tyres the way he wants to be able to make them last, like what they did for the one stop. So there's that, and then like I said earlier when we discussed it, it's the confidence to be able to run that close up behind Lando.
Yeah.
And you don't see that from many people in that scenario. I think the other one is probably Hamilton on. I'm pretty sure it was Gasly. It was definitely one of the Alpines. I'm pretty sure it was Gasly, and it was the way he sort of bided his time getting on the power, coming up to Stavolo to be able to make a dive up the inside, and it was somewhere you don't generally see moves like that, so it sort of stood out to me for that reason. But then also when you watch it from Hamilton's onboard, you sort of see the way he's just hunting, waiting for Gasly to commit somewhere or the other, and then he's like pounce, and it's sort of a bit of a masterclass in weather overtaking, I think, that one.
Yeah, so that's the one that stood out to me as well. Yeah, I'm happy to go with that one for sure. And then last one.
Honestly, what the f*** are we doing here?
There's kind of not much for this, which in itself, like in Discord, it's been nominated. The fact that there were no safety cars, no red flags, no retirements in conditions like those is kind of in itself appropriate for this award. Was there anything else that you could think of?
I mean, for me, going into the episode, it was my suggestion was going to be the thing we talked about, which is running a single lap behind the safety car and then going, nope. That was
and then just watching the rain coming in.
And then just basically sat waiting for a rainstorm, letting it pass, and then starting the race afterwards. I think that he just screamed of they never actually wanted to start it. To me,
yeah,
it's we're going to send them around behind the safety car in order to officially have started the race clock, because I'm pretty sure that did start the race clock, right? Or it should have, I think.
Yeah, I think it probably did.
Oh, according to chat, it didn't.
So I think it starts.
It wasn't a racing lap. It was a formation lap or a reconnaissance lap behind the safety car, wasn't it? It wasn't actually an official formation lap or anything like that. But even still, like, they had no intention of starting that race, so they would have been better just saying, "There's rain coming in. We're going to delay the start by 15 minutes to see if it comes or not," rather than waste everybody's time saying, we're going to send everybody out and we're just going to see what the conditions are. Like, either just call it off or run them 4 or 5 laps and do what they did ultimately when they started the race. So yeah, I think there was just a bit of poor race management. And I do get the safety calls and stuff like that, but you only have to look at the drivers' onboards from that reconnaissance lap, and generally they were fine. Like, yes, when you got right up behind someone, you couldn't see anything. But that happens no matter how little water's on the track and how little it's rained. There was a lot of onboard from guys with the helmet visor cams that you could clearly see where you were going. It wasn't as, and the grip levels appeared to be there. Like no one was complaining about grip. It was purely about visibility. And when you saw the onboards, I feel like I've driven him worse on a motorway. I mean, I know I'm only doing 70 on a motorway and they're doing like upwards of 200, but I feel like I've driven him worse visibility than what they had. That's all I'm saying. I think some of the drivers agreed. Like a lot of them were saying, this is nowhere near as bad as Silverstone. Let's just go racing. And I think it was very much circumstantial. One of the arguments I sort of agree with, and I'm glad they sort of sided towards, was as they were going through the start-finish straight. For example, Lando was pretty adamant that if they were going to start, he wanted a rolling start because the two sides of the circuit weren't drying evenly, which makes sense because they're not running over the whole thing, and it is going to dry differently because of that. So I think listening to some feedback like that and deciding to go for a rolling start when they ultimately did, that's fine. But when you've got like half the grid saying we can just go racing and the other half saying, oh no, I don't know about this, I think you've just got to make a sensible choice and just go for it. Like there's an element of people just gamesmanship, I think, at that point.
Yeah, because I mean the trouble is, as much as the drivers are giving feedback, they're also all playing games, right? Like they want to tell the race director what will most benefit their race. Someone like Lewis Hamilton is like, let's get going because I know I can make up places here. Someone like Lando Norris is like, maybe we should tutor behind the safety car for a few more laps.
Exactly.
Right, should we do some predictions?
Yeah, I'll do a quick recap. So between us, we got a point each because you got a Piastri win and I got a Norris pole. Didn't get much anywhere else. Only a handful of people scored 3 points as well. We had 3 people score 3 points, which was Thomas Lake, Jared Loudermilk, and James Hadley with a 3 to score 3 points. Everybody else was 2 or below. Probably helped that by 20 finishes. It's not very often you get a weekend at Spa with 20 finishes, no DNFs. So I think, although having said that, I will actually just point out, I've just noticed something in these results. Jared Loudermilk actually said no DNFs and 20 finishes. That was one of the reasons for getting 3 points. So there you go. James Hadley's probably kicking himself because he went with nobody for first DNF, but then 16 finishes and went a bit bet hedgy and would have had 4 points had not hedging bets. But
alas,
it is what it is. In terms of the overall standings, Gordon Barham is still our leader on 20 points, but there's now 2 people joint second with 19. You've got Michael Lebaldus and Luke Cruikshank, who are both on 19, so very close there. And Luke's missed a race, looking at these results. So only got 12 submissions, so could be one to watch. Over in the F1 Fantasy game, Alfa Varen scored 365 points this week, being our winner. And Wine Racing is still the leader of the championship overall with 3,146 points. And then in GridRival, another stroll in the wall, scored 1,099 points. I was quite impressed this weekend because the top 3 are within 4 points of each other. There's 1095, 1096, and 1099, I think. And usually in GridRival, getting over 1,000 is a good weekend.
Yeah.
So for 3 people, and possibly more further down, to be like comfortably over 1,000 points, that's some good weekends in GridRival. Overall, though, we have a new leader. This one's going back and forth a lot. I've noticed. We had a leader. Oh, I forgot Onion's full name. What was Onion's full name? Can you remember?
Oh God, no! We've said it so many times, and I now can't remember it.
Onions. The artist formerly known as Onion was leading for a long time, and then we've just had a bouncing around, haven't we? And we've now got, funnily enough,
Crusty
I say bouncing.
Onion. That's
Crusty
what it
Onion.
was.
Thank you, chat. Thanks, Tom. I said bouncing around and then realised this person's name is Reporpoist, which is also a great
Nice.
name. But they now lead the way with 12,277 points. But I think there's like 100 points between the top 5 or something like that. And for, like I say, for a fantasy league where you're scoring over 1,000 points on a good weekend, to be within 100 points of each other at this stage in the season is pretty good. Pretty damn good. If you want to get involved with any of that, head to backofthegrid.com. You can register on there for the Predictions League. You can see the results if you haven't checked them out already. And it's always worth getting involved with Predictions League, because if you do score that 5 out of 5 on that one elusive occasion, then we do hand out a prize for that. Also, links to the fantasy leagues are on there. And as many of you probably know by now, we also are doing an IndyCar fantasy league this season, which... Chris, are you leading or are you just up there?
I am still against all odds leading, yeah.
Yeah, so it turns out we maybe should become IndyCar pundits, because we appear to be better at picking IndyCar winners than we do Formula One winners. But yeah, that's all on there, so head to backofthegrid.com. And moving on from that, we're going to do a little bit about Hungary. I mean, one or two probably talking points before we're doing any predictions. I think a first one from me is, are we going to see some weather effect again? Because Hungary very traditionally is warm, but also rainy and thunderstormy, especially at this time of year, as we can stand testament to personally on multiple occasions. Weather at the moment is looking like 28 degrees plus over the late end of the week going into the weekend, but then thunderstorm warnings and a downpour coming Sunday. So could be one of those where we get a very warm practice and quali sort of scenario, followed by an absolute deluge during the race.
Which sounds about the worst possible setup for Mercedes, based on what we said earlier.
Yeah, it's not a weekend for Mercedes, which, like you say, we alluded to before. Do we think it's going to play a big factor here?
I mean, this is the race last season where McLaren first started looking like the dominant team. And I don't see anyone else being able to match them, especially at a track where tyre wear is a big deal and they are so good on tyre wear. So I think they're going to be hard to beat by anybody. Yeah, I mean, Verstappen's always gone well here. Red Bull have always gone well here. So I think we might maybe see them a bit more in the fight with Ferrari behind the McLarens, possibly.
Yeah, I think Max in his Red Bull will probably do a better job here than the Ferraris, would be my call. Just because there's not as much room for them to stretch that straight line pace that they have, which is probably what was helping Charles defend from Max as well as he did. And that's not going to play into this. So, yeah, I think overall, with weather being a factor, I don't think it's going to mix up the order at the front too much. I think you're probably going to get a McLaren 1-2 of some description, followed by Max, and then the Ferraris would be my guess, because it's a circuit Hamilton's done well at in the past as well, so he knows his way around here. But then that sort of brings me on to the next bit of, out of the two McLarens, do you think we can maybe have a bit of back and forth here with Norris sort of responding to the result in Belgium at a circuit that he's traditionally gone well at? So despite Norris not winning here last year, he had the outright pace to and gave the position back to Piastri, but did have the pace to win, and
there might be
has gone quite well here in the past generally.
A bit of an unfinished business kind of thing for Norris here, I think. So yeah, I would hope we'll get a closer fight between the two of them this weekend. And you know, it is a track that doesn't have so many high speed corners, so it is, although we don't traditionally get the most overtakes here, it is a track you can follow at. So if you've got two cars on a similar pace to each other, we may well get some actual fights down into like turn 1 and through 2 and 3. So
Yeah.
the promise is there, I think.
That's usually the main place for it, isn't it? Everything else is a bit too close and fast. There's not really enough of a run into the chicane at the top of the hill to be able to. And it's not wide enough to really have a run at anyone there.
No.
I mean, you occasionally see people have a go through the 2 hairpins that finish the lap.
Yeah, I think you need a big pace delta though to really have a go there, don't you?
So I think the main overtaking point, like you say, is going to be 1 with maybe a move that runs down into 2 and 3.
Yeah,
it's generally what we see. But yeah, I think this could be, like you say, a bit of an unfinished business, especially with not being able to convert the win in Spa weekend just gone. I think this might be one where visor down, full throttle Norris comes out, but I guess time will tell.
Yeah.
Time will tell on that one. Paul's raised a good one, I think, in chat, as we've been discussing, saying, could and should Lewis be quicker than Charles here in the Ferrari?
It is a track that Lewis has historically been very good at, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, like, although the actual results might not say it, like pace-wise, he does seem to have been getting closer. So, yeah, if I think there's anywhere he's going to be able to get ahead, this is probably one of the good candidates for it, for sure. Something to look at. Anything
to add from you before we make any predictions on this one?
No, I think we've delayed the inevitable long enough, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to make early predictions easy, and I'm going to, in my Lando hat, say we get a fastest in Q3 and a conversion from Norris here, based on what we've just been saying.
I'm going to go for a Piastri fastest in Q3, but a Norris win.
Ooh, so a flip reverse of this weekend that's just gone.
Yeah.
Interesting. What makes you think, where's your thoughts come from on that? I'm intrigued.
I think over one lap, Piastri has been really, really good this year. Like he really should have been on pole in Belgium, but just didn't quite put it together in Q3. Otherwise, he'd look faster all weekend. But I don't know. I can just see Norris getting him into turn 1 and managing to hold him off.
Fair. Okay, first DNF.
First DNF, we are going to go with... Let's go for a Liam Lawson.
Okay. I'm a bit torn on this one, so I'm just going to pick an old faithful and say Lance Stroll, because I just don't know who to go with at the minute. It's a difficult time.
It is a difficult one this year.
To be able to pick these first DNFs. Number of finishers, I'm going to go with a couple of incidents that lead to retirements and say 17th. Or 17, sorry, not 17th.
I'll go 18, one better.
Okay. And then random driver for this week is Liam Lawson. Oh, Chris. Oh, no.
It's made a decision for me then, hasn't it? I'll stick with it.
Yeah?
20th.
You're going all in? Okay. Yeah. Do you know what? I think we've started to see a little bit of a turn in form for Liam. And I can't remember if it was... Spa was the last track he'd not raced at in F1 before, or if Budapest is the last track. But we get into a point where he's raced everywhere before, and I genuinely can't remember if he's raced here or not. I can't remember if he was in the car.
I don't think he's raced here before, but I might be wrong.
I'm very rapidly checking because I genuinely can't remember.
We are checking.
We are checking, true Ferrari style. His F1 results include... Yeah, nothing here.
Yeah, first time.
Because it was before Spa last time.
Yeah.
It's normally the way around. So he didn't, in 2023. 2023 he didn't do it, and then obviously he only took over for the end of the 2024 season. So this is his first full season. I'm still going to go with a decent result, though. I'm going to put him 10th, just a solid points position for him. So, there we go. Cool. That is us. As I mentioned before, if you want to get involved, head to backofthegrid.com and you can submit all your predictions. Prize for 5 out of 5. Inbox.
Keep it saying now. No, stay out. Box. Hey, man.
First one this week's from Wes, who says, "Hey man, you may have covered this already, but Lando has received a lot of criticism for mistakes made in his efforts to catch Oscar. Is that criticism valid given how hard Lando has to push? I've heard some drivers say that when you push that hard, things are going to happen. It isn't necessarily a fault on his part."
I mean, we touched on it a little bit, didn't we, of how hard he was pushing on those hard tyres and the mistakes he made. I think it's 50-50 for me. I think there was an element that he had to push pretty hard in order to put Piastri under enough of a threat that to make Piastri use the tyres up, essentially. So he had to do that to try and close the gap. And the hard tyres being the hard tyres weren't particularly quick. Like the delta between them was pretty significant. So it was hard for him to do that. So yes, you probably do expect some mistakes and like wobbles and things like that. I think the difference between someone going and winning that race and just finishing close in second, like what Norris did, though, is probably the number of those mistakes he made. Is probably,
Yeah.
and I guess what doesn't help as well is, had it been a dry race, those mistakes are probably a little bit more forgiving. Like if you go deep into a corner or you run wide or whatever it is, and it's dry, you might lose a tenth. You do it in the wet on hard tyres, you're probably losing anything up to half a second. Like it turns those tyres to ice, even if just temporarily. So I think it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. Yes, Lando could have probably done better, but ultimately, in the conditions he was in, mistakes like that are going to happen, and maybe just needs to be less of them. But I think it was always a bit of a stretch suggesting that he was going to be able to claw that back when we know that the McLaren's as good on its tyres as it is. And Oscar in free air, just being able to run his own race, meant that Lando really had to push to make that work, and mistakes are going to happen at that point. So I think, yeah, bit of both.
Yeah, I think there definitely is some truth to those criticisms. I do think it is one of the weaknesses in Lando's skill set is that he does make these small errors. If you think of the times we've seen like a Verstappen or a Hamilton in a similar situation, and they are just able to put like metronomically put in these like basically qualifying laps to close down a gap, and you just don't see the same number of mistakes from drivers like that. So I do think it's a little bit of a weakness he has that he probably needs to work on for sure.
Yeah. Sean OC says, "Hi guys, after Alex Dunn's dominant qualifying in the F2 and taking pole by over 4/10, do you think he's in with a decent chance of an F1 seat in the near future, or is he being hampered by being a reserve driver to what could arguably be the best duo with Oscar and Lando?"
Yeah, unfortunately for him this weekend, he did dominate qualifying. But he was stripped of the feature race victory because of a really silly procedural thing with a setting on the steering wheel on the formation lap, which hilariously means that the win would have been given to Arvid Lindblad, but he'd already been disqualified. So he went down to like the third place finisher. Yeah, it's tricky because he's doing a really good job in F2, but I don't know what McLaren are going to do with him. I mean, in many ways, I think it would be best for him and McLaren if he doesn't win the F2 title this year and he can have a second season there. Because I don't know what they're going to do with him. Like, I guess that's one of the downsides of being a team like McLaren versus a manufacturer team is you can't it's harder to farm off your drivers to someone else because you also supply them engines. You know, if this was Mercedes we're talking about, we'll just find them a space at, Williams historically or someone else we give the engines to. So, yeah, tricky one for him.
Yeah, and obviously McLaren have mixed where they've raced elsewhere historically. But the only thing that's really been relatively consistent for McLaren as an alternate destination is the IndyCar team. But it's whether someone like Alex Dunn actually wants that. And
It's
would
hard to
go
come
there.
back once you've gone to IndyCar, isn't it?
Yeah, or going straight to Formula E, it's hard to then come back. Like,
yeah,
you only have to look at the likes of, say, Nick de Vries, who's tried that and it failed. You can't help but think that maybe Nick de Vries' career would have been slightly different if he'd managed to get straight into F1, but that's just the unfortunate way things fall. And it would be a shame because Alex is looking very, very credible as an F1 driver for the future. You only have to look at how close to the pace he was during his test session, his FP1 session.
He was very impressive.
To get in that car. Yeah, we know that car's quick, but he was not far off the pace of was Piastri in the other car, wasn't it? I think it was Norris's car he used. So yeah, like, to be that close that quickly just shows that there's some good natural talent there. So
yeah, he was like 2/10 off, I think, in that Austria practice session.
Yeah, so if McLaren can find somewhere to put him, like a back market team that'll take maybe a bit of a financial incentive to seat him, you never know.
Yeah, maybe they'll go down the Red Bull route and fund a super Formula team, possibly.
Yeah, possibly.
Or something like that.
Yeah, just something to keep him going and acquiring more super license points.
He's definitely a name to keep an eye on, though, in F2 this year.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think about wraps us up this week. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Sorry, we've probably both sounded a little off this week, but we're back through. We'll be back next week, hopefully a lot healthier, to review the Hungarian Grand Prix on the way into the summer break. The real summer break this time, not the pretend one we had a little while ago. As ever, you can find us online in all the social media places, backthegrid.com as well, where you can also find all the Predictions League stuff and links to F1 Fantasy and GridRival. You can join our lovely Patreon Discord community at patreon.com/backofthegrid. But I think that is everything. It's a normal weekend, isn't it, in Hungary, not a sprint. So predictions will be closing at the usual time before Q1 starts. So yeah, until then, thanks as always for joining us, and goodbye.
Bye, everyone.